Welcome to Craving the Heat, where desire takes the lead and every story leaves you wanting more. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments and keep up with our latest naughty stories. I never thought I'd find myself here standing in my own kitchen, heart pounding, unable to look the boy I once watched grow up straight in the eye. It started innocently enough. Our families had been neighbors for over a decade. Their son, Ethan, was just a few years older than my daughter, and he'd always been the quiet, respectful type, polite at family barbecues, helpful during snowstorms, and gentle with my dogs. I remember when he left for college, waving goodbye from across the hedge, his mother teary-eyed, his father proud. He came back taller, more confident, with something unreadable in his eyes. He was 24 now, and I was 42, married, stagnantly so. My husband and I hadn't connected in years, not truly. We moved through life like coworkers sharing a mortgage, schedules overlapping just enough to keep up appearances. The silence between us grew heavier with time until it didn't even feel uncomfortable anymore. It just was. Then Ethan came back home for the summer, and everything started shifting. It began with small things, running into him on the porch while watering plants, chatting at the mailbox, or exchanging a few texts when his mom asked me to check on their house while they were away. One evening, as the sky burned orange with sunset, he came over to drop off a package mistakenly delivered to their address. I invited him in for coffee. He hesitated, then nodded. That night, we sat on opposite ends of the couch, steam rising between us from our mugs. We talked about school, about how the world felt different post-pandemic, about what it was like to return to a home that didn't feel like one anymore. And then he said something that stayed with me. It's strange, isn't it? You grow up thinking adults have it all figured out, and then you get older and realize they're just as lost as you are. I didn't know how to answer that, so I just looked at him. There was something different in his gaze, not boyish admiration, not friendly neighborliness, something searching, something bold. From that night forward, he came over more often. Sometimes to help me move boxes from the attic. Sometimes just to talk when his parents weren't home. He started calling me Elena, not Mrs. Rayner. I didn't correct him. The boundaries blurred slowly like ink and water. One rainy afternoon, he came over soaked to the bone, asking if I had a towel. My husband was away for a conference. I handed him one, and he dried his hair in the doorway, water dripping onto the hardwood. He looked up at me with those storm-colored eyes and said, "I think about you more than I should." My breath caught in my throat. I didn't know what to say. I should have told him to leave. I didn't. He stepped closer, the tension between us electric and terrifying. "I know I probably shouldn't say this," he continued, voice low and trembling, "but I need to say it, even if nothing comes of it." I waited. "I've always noticed you, Elena, even when I was younger, but now I can't stop." I turned away, pressing a hand to my mouth. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. "I'm married," I whispered. "I know," he said. "I'm not trying to take anything. I just needed you to know." I asked him to leave after that, not unkindly, not angrily, but firmly. For days, I didn't see him. I avoided the porch, closed the blinds, pretended everything was fine, but nothing was fine. That night haunted me, not because of what he said, but because of what I felt. Because something deep in me stirred, something that had been dormant for years, longing, attention, desire, and worst of all, connection. It came to a head a week later. It was late. I was sitting on the back steps in my robe, sipping wine, letting the cool breeze wash over me. I didn't hear him approach. I just felt the presence. "You haven't been out front," he said. I looked up. I didn't know what to say. "You don't have to say anything." There was a silence. Then he sat next to me. So close, I could feel the warmth of him through the fabric of my robe. So close, I could hear his breath change when I didn't. "Move away. I shouldn't be here," I said, eyes fixed on the stars. "But you are," he whispered. The rest. unfolded like a dream. A dangerous, irreversible dream. The first touch was accidental, a brush of fingers, then deliberate. His hand on mine, my lips parting, his breath catching. And then the kiss, hungry, desperate, filled with everything we'd both been holding back. I don't know how long it lasted. Time folded in on itself. The aftermath was worse than I imagined. Not guilt, at least not at first, but confusion, ache, the sting of reality setting in. He left before dawn, saying nothing. I watched him walk back to his house, barefoot, head low. I wanted to call out. ID in single quotes, T.days passed. Then, weeks out, we haven't spoken since my husband came home from his conference. We resumed our silent routines. The dishwasher ran. The porch lights flickered on at dusk. And across the yard, Ethan was still there mowing the lawn, jogging at dawn, waving politely when our eyes met across the hedge, but something had changed forever. He opened up, and I let something open in me too, something I can't close again. The days that followed were wrapped in a quiet so thick it almost felt deliberate. Ethan didn't text, I didn't reach out. We went back to pretending, but the pretending was the loudest part of all. I found myself replaying that night on an endless loop, his breath, the way his fingers curled around mine like they were meant to be there, the hesitation in his eyes that matched my own. I wanted to dismiss it as a mistake, a fleeting lapse in judgment, but that would have been a lie. It wasn't fleeting. And it wasn't a mistake. I started avoiding mirrors. Not because I didn't like what I saw, but because I didn't recognize her. The woman in the reflection looked alive again. Haunted, yes, but undeniably alive. And that scared me more than anything. One evening I was folding laundry when I saw Ethan through the window, seated in his backyard, alone, staring up at the sky. The moonlight touched his face in a way that made him look older, wearier, like he was carrying the same guilt or longing. I wanted to go to him. Instead, I sat back down and folded my husband's shirt with shaking hands. It was almost poetic. How it happened again on a rainy night. I just returned from the grocery store, drenched and irritable. My husband was out again late meeting, or maybe just avoiding me the way I avoided him. I dropped the keys in the bowl and turned to see Ethan standing in the open doorway of my kitchen. I knocked, he said. The door was cracked. I didn't want to scare you. I didn't know how to respond. I should have sent him away, but I didn't. What are you doing here? I asked, not unkindly. I had to see you, he said, stepping inside, water running down the collar of his jacket. Not for that, just I need to talk. He looked different, frayed at the edges, restless. I motioned toward the couch. He didn't sit. I shouldn't have kissed you, he began, voice hoarse. I thought it was what I wanted, but it's not fair. To you, to your marriage, to whatever line we crossed. I blinked back tears. It wasn't just you. I crossed it too. I know, he whispered. That's why it hurts more. We stood in silence, inches apart, but miles away. And then he did something unexpected. He laughed, not mockingly, but with the kind of sadness that only comes when you finally accept. Something you can't change. I think I convinced myself that you were just lonely, he said. And maybe I was too, but the truth is, I didn't want to see you as someone else's wife. I wanted to see you as mine. And I know that's selfish. I know it's wrong. Tears spilled down my cheeks before I realized I was crying. Ethan. I'm leaving, he said, stepping back. Next week. I got a job in Portland. It's fast, but it's what I need. And just like that, the floor dropped out from under me. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I knew I wouldn't go if I did. We didn't kiss that night. We didn't touch. But it was more intimate than anything that came before. He left in the morning. I watched from the kitchen window as he hugged his parents goodbye, his duffel slung over his shoulder, his car packed. He didn't look toward my house. Not once, but I knew he felt me watching. Just like I had always felt him watching me. And when he drove off down the street, A part of me went with him. My husband returned home late that night, kissing my cheek, absent-mindedly complaining about traffic and deadlines. I nodded, smiled, set the table. It was easy now, this act. I had become an expert at it, but in the quiet moments, when the world slows down, I still think of Ethan, of what he gave me, of what we broke, and of how opening up doesn't always lead to closure sometimes. It just reveals how empty the space has truly been all along. Autumn came with a bitterness I couldn't shake. The leaves fell like confessions, piling at my feet with every step I took outside. I still walked past the corner of our properties where Ethan used to sit with his headphones on, head tilted toward the sun. It had become a habit, this quiet form of self-torture. I'd look for signs of him without meaning to. A car in the driveway, a text that never came, a voice I thought I heard while unloading groceries, but the silence stayed. My marriage, if you could still call it that, had settled into something even colder than before. My husband barely noticed the difference. We functioned. Bills got paid. Dinners were made. But every now and then, in those hollow stretches between midnight and morning, I would wake up, press my palm to the empty side of the bed, and remember the weight of Ethan's voice. It was late November when he reached out. Not a phone call. Not a message. An email. Subject line: I wasn't sure if I should write this. I read it 3 times before I could breathe again. He was in Portland, working in architecture, living in a shared apartment with 2 friends from college. He missed the East Coast but didn't regret leaving. I think about you more than I should, he wrote. I don't expect you to write back. I just wanted you to know I haven't forgotten. I couldn't. I sat with that message for hours. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, trembling with the weight of everything I couldn't say. I wanted to tell him that I thought about him too, that the space he left hadn't been filled, not even slightly. But I often wondered what might have happened if we had met in another life, one where I wasn't married, and he wasn't my neighbor's son. But I didn't reply. Not yet. Christmas came. And with it, the usual gatherings, the endless cycle of family dinners, neighbors dropping off tins of cookies. His parents still smiled at me like nothing had happened. Like their son hadn't stood in my kitchen and changed the direction of my heart. It wasn't until New Year's Eve that the silence broke for real. We were at a local community event, me, my husband, and a few others. Someone mentioned Ethan in passing, asking if he was still out west. His mother nodded. He is. Doing well. We're hoping he comes home for spring. My chest tightened. That night, back home, I stood alone on the porch as fireworks burst in the distance. My husband was already in bed, and I realized, suddenly and painfully, that I hadn't made a single resolution. There was nothing left to promise, nothing new to fix. I went inside and opened my laptop, and I wrote him back. I read your email more times than I'll admit. I'm not sure if you were brave to send it or if I'm a coward for taking this long to respond. Maybe we were both caught in a moment that shouldn't have happened, but I don't regret it. I regret that we couldn't be more. I didn't expect a response, but the next day one came. I didn't expect you to write back. I just needed to hear your voice somehow. I still remember that night, Elena, every second of it. But I've accepted that some things are meant to stay. Memories. I'm glad you wrote. Even if it's the last time. We never wrote again, but something inside me shifted. It wasn't closure. There's no such thing when a wound heals around something still embedded beneath the skin. But I stopped standing at the window. I stopped waiting for his name to show up on my phone. I started slowly reclaiming the pieces of myself I had lost long before Ethan ever touched me. I began therapy. I started journaling again. I even asked my husband awkwardly, painfully, if we could talk. Really talk. We tried. And we failed. But for the first time in years, I was honest. And when spring arrived and the forsythia bloomed across the hedge, I smiled, not because Ethan was coming back, but because I finally understood he wasn't a mistake. He was a mirror, one I had avoided for too long. 3 years passed. In that time, I changed more than I expected. My marriage didn't survive, and not because of Ethan. My husband and I eventually sat across from each other in our kitchen one rainy morning and simply admitted what we both knew. There was no love left, only habit. We ended it quietly, like two people gently folding up a shared past and placing it on a shelf. I moved out 6 months later into a smaller home 2 towns over. My daughter was in college by then. The house felt empty, but not in a sad way, in a free way. I planted lavender out front. I took morning walks. I started painting again. I hadn't thought about Ethan in a long time. At least not in that sharp, aching way I used to dot. And then one April afternoon, I saw him. I was back in my old neighborhood visiting a friend, walking past his parents' house. He was there, kneeling in the garden with a spade in hand, wiping sweat from his brow. My breath caught. He stood up, turned, and froze. Our eyes met. He was older now, broader, his hair a little longer. But the moment felt eerily familiar, like time had collapsed in on itself. "Elena," he said, quietly, like the name still held weight in his mouth. "Hi, Ethan." A long silence passed. "You look good," he said. "You do too." Another pause, the kind that dares you to fill it with truth or run from it. "I heard you moved," he said, stepping closer. "I did. Needed something of my own." He nodded. "I'm happy for you." I smiled. "Thanks." And then, just like that, it happened. The smile. The one I remembered from years ago. The one that said everything without saying anything at all. "Are you home for good?" I asked. He shrugged, thinking about it. Portland's changed. Or maybe I did. I nodded. Neither of us mentioned that night, or the emails, or the ache we used to carry for each other. We didn't need to dot. It was in the air between us, not heavy anymore. Just real. A shared memory neither of us regretted. "I should go," I said. He stepped back. "Of course, it was good to see you." As I turned to walk away, he called out, "Elena." I paused. If I had said something different that night, do you think we... I smiled sadly, not turning around. Maybe, but then we wouldn't be who we are now. And with that, I kept walking. Not away from him. Not toward anything else, just forward. For the first time, truly forward.